Welcome to the What's Important Now broadcast. In America today, we are witnessing a cultural shift. This is the show devoted to the battle for the soul of our country. Join our host, Tom Sears, as he explains the issues of our day and join the fight to bring values and morality back. Let's join Tom now as he shares what's important now.
Welcome inside What's Important Now. I'm Tom Sears. Thanks for being a part of our program as we continue our fight for the battle of the soul of our country and to continue to battle to bring values and morality back. Again, thank you for being here. Our email address is what'simportantnowradio@gmail.com, what'simportantnowradio@gmail.com, and our mailing address is 8901 Good Hope Pike, Lost Creek, West Virginia, 26385. Now, if you missed those, I'll give them again at the end of the program, so stay tuned for that. The theme for our program today is the Bill of Wrongs, the left's attack on the First Amendment. And I want to start by saying that actions have consequences. This is not some new idea, you know that. But all the way back in the beginning, when God created everything, we learned that actions had consequences. You see, God gave Adam and Eve free will. And the Bible says in Genesis chapter 2, verses 16 and 17, "You may surely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die." Now, they were instructed then that their actions would have consequences, but they still had a choice. He didn't force them. He just said, don't. So the same is true with our speech today. The Bible gives us very clear directions on things that we should and shouldn't say. But we still have the freedom to say whatever we want. With that being said, the things that we say will have consequences. Now, there's a clear agenda on display to rid this country of biblical Christian values and conservative views. The agenda has upped the game recently by silencing conservative voices, because the silencing of Christian voices has been going on for some time, as you know. But now we have elected officials, or I guess we always have had some, but we should say that it seems to be more prevalent today, that elected officials in the highest places of government are actually encouraging and condoning the restriction of free speech. And that's going to be the focus of our program today. Now, without getting into all the specifics of how the Bill of Rights ended up being a part of the Constitution, let me say this. There was a debate between our founding fathers as to whether or not the Constitution should have a Bill of Rights protecting individual freedoms. And there was a faction of our founders that said individual rights must be outlined because they could not be assumed. Thus, we got the Bill of Rights. Now, of course, there is more to it as it concerns ratifying the Constitution, etc., but I'm trying to make another point today. The Bill of Rights were added to protect the American people and their individual rights. Can you imagine, for a moment, what the country would look like if the Bill of Rights did not end up in the Constitution? I mean, we have seen the Bill of Rights under attack. Imagine if they were not there. There would be no assumption of freedom of speech. So I need you to understand something, and I've said this before, but there is a group in this country, and it's a large group. They want to fundamentally change this nation forever. They are offended by what this country was founded upon, and they want to remove every single trace of it. Thus, the Bill of Rights, at least to them, have become the Bill of Wrongs. They have focused their attention on rewriting history, telling a different story, making our founders villains instead of heroes. They have thrust false claims on the young minds of Americans to collectively destroy the truth of our beginnings. Former President Woodrow Wilson once said that in order to know where you are going, well, you must know where you have been. But my question is, what if where we have been is replaced by an alternate reality? The more the alternate reality is peddled to our youth, the more the true history disappears. Abraham Lincoln said that the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next. Thus, look at some of our leaders today. What will the next generation of leaders look like? If we can remove the truth, then the only thing we have to build on is a lie. Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing unprecedented times. I've always expressed concern for our country, but my concerns are rising to a whole new level. Free speech is becoming criminal. Social media platforms are being shut down if they oppose the left's lingo. Conservative leaders are being compared to Nazis. And to make a point there, as it pertains to Nazi behavior, the Nazi behavior that is taking place in this country, it's coming from those who are censoring the voices of those who oppose their views. I mean, think about it for a moment. This is exactly what Hitler did. This is what North Korea does. This is what China does. They silence the voices that disagree, and then they control what is being promoted to the citizens. Now, this is tremendous cause for concern. Think about it. There are calls to punish conservative politicians for the attacks on the Capitol. Now, please remember, they were also fearing for their lives. Punish the conservative politicians because a group of bad eggs attacked the Capitol? This is crazy. Former Governor Mike Huckabee recently said that what we should not make, or that we should not make this a right or left issue, but rather we should make it a right or wrong issue. And I completely agree. But unfortunately, those on the other side of this, well, they live in an ivory tower and refuse to see anything they do or support as wrong. Not killing babies, not burning down buildings, not defunding the police, and not silencing conservatives. President Trump, think about this. He was removed from Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. He's not allowed to tweet, but the leader of Iran is. They can shut down Parler because conservatives were moving to it by the millions, but they won't shut down child porn. Is there anyone else that sees a problem here? And what's next? Do we start removing podcasts, shutting down radio programs? What about media outlets that don't toe the line? Well, they could be shut down too. And if you think I'm kidding, the left is calling for sponsors to pull ads from Fox News. Why? Well, apparently Fox News peddles lies. Now, I'll be the first to say that Fox News isn't perfect and it has its issues, but really? I mean, CNN and MSNBC do nothing but regurgitate the left's agenda over and over and over again. Plus, they can't beat Fox in the ratings, so I guess, well, they need to try to find another way to take them down. You see, this has been the strategy for some time. And I fear that with the left having a monopoly on power in Washington, this country may be on the verge of being changed forever. And please, please, spare me the unified mumbo-jumbo. You can't have unity while the president-elect is calling Trump supporters dangerous. Listen, every group has bad eggs. You can't throw out all the eggs because some are bad. The left they don't want to only throw out the eggs, they want to kill the chicken that laid them. People, wake up. This behavior should concern every American, no matter where you stand on the issues. What about my opinion? Does it no longer matter? What about yours? What does it mean for Christians? Now, here's the thing. Christianity has been under attack in this country for many years. And I believe that conservative politicians have been able to stifle that agenda. So, I guess it's time to get conservatives out of the picture. Now, I've often said, and I even said it on last week's program, this is not my intention to scare you. But ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time. I think it's time that we should all be scared. Twitter's creator, his name's Jack Dorsey, and he was recently caught on a video explaining what the agenda is. He's recorded as saying, quote, "We are focused on one account right now, but this is going to be much bigger than just one account. And it's going to go on much longer. than just this day, this week, and the next few weeks, and go on beyond the inauguration, end of quote. Of course, the one account that he was talking about was President Trump, but it's clear that there's going to be a deep cleaning of conservative voices. Now, I don't know about you, but I know individuals who have had their Facebook and Twitter accounts blocked. You know, social media giants feel the need to fact check everything. We've seen this following the election, folks. They control what is being promoted to the American public. When Twitter removed President Trump, they said that they felt they had to, because his online words, well, they were causing real world violence. That's hogwash. I will admit that his words stirred his base, but to say his tweets cause violence is a stretch. The hypocrisy comes from the left on this issue, and it's astounding. They were either silent or they condoned the riots of this past summer. And now all of a sudden, they want to condemn. Now all of a sudden, they want conservatives silenced. You know, if you voted for President Trump, you are in the basket that needs thrown away, in their opinion. You know, God help us. Our founding fathers told us that without morality and virtue, the Constitution could not stand. We are witnessing the dismantling of the Bill of Rights. It's not going to happen. It is happening. And one of the reasons that the Roman Empire fell was because the people grew apathetic. And this means they reached a place where they just didn't care anymore. I pray that the people of this nation don't get so tired of the garbage that they reach a place of not caring. That should be what we all are praying. Now, as it pertains to freedom of speech and the Bible, and keep in mind that the founders believed that the Bible was the foundation of morality and values and virtue. The Bible doesn't expressly advocate for free speech. What it does is provide us with guidance on what we should and shouldn't say. And this is important because this was the lens that our founders were looking through. They believed that the Constitution could only stand under this guidance. So once we as a country depart from the Bible, well, in essence, we fracture the freedoms outlined in the Constitution, and this is proving to be true. The guidance the Bible provides is rooted in the idea that sin leads to bondage, but following Christ leads to freedom. And most of our founders held this view. Furthermore, the Bible teaches us not to curse, not to lie, not to deceive, not to slander, not to make false witness, to have evil talk or filthy language, or to tear others down. But today, this idea is at odds with some in our society. And today, people of power, well, it's not a surprise that they tell lies. They deceive for profit. Entertainment has become explicit. All of this shapes our culture and feeds our minds, especially the minds of our youth. The Bible doesn't teach us to use language that destroys, but rather to use language that tells the truth and builds people up. So a good rule of thumb is knowing when to exercise your freedom of speech. Follow the advice laid out in Ephesians 4:29, which says, "Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear." Yet with all of that said, the Bible is no longer valid for many people. Many Americans put no value in the Bible. And so what happens is they're learning to communicate via today's media giants. And this, of course, leads them to silence anything that opposes their view. In an article written by Steve Jordahl of One News Now, it reads, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was live streaming one of her kitchen table video blogs on Tuesday when she was asked about the role media has in reporting the apparent stealing of the 2020 election and whether it played into the Capitol riots. Well, freedom of press definitely needs to be reined in, she replied. Of course, she's one of the leaders of the so-called Squad. Ocasio-Cortez said, quote, "There's absolutely a commission that's being discussed, but it seems to be more investigatory in style rather than truth and reconciliation." So I think that's an interesting concept for us to explore. Several members of Congress in some of my discussions have brought up media literacy because that is part of what happened. And we're going to have to figure out how we rein in our media environment so that we cannot spew disinformation and misinformation, end of quote. Now, attorney Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel said a year or more ago that such a proposal would have been dismissed out of hand as a direct violation of the First Amendment. However, he says all of that has changed as politicians, with the blessings of the courts, are forbidding people from going to church and restricting their movements in public, while big tech throws public figures and private citizens off their platforms for questioning the integrity of the 2020 election. He said, quote, "We have a political leader in President-elect Joe Biden and political party that want to punish anybody who doesn't agree with them. I think we're moving into some really uncharted territory." He went on to share that he's seen these types of restrictions before. He said, quote, "This is so-called Truth Commission or Ministry of Truth, whatever they want to call it, is shocking, and it really comes out of the communist Marxist playbook," end of quote. And the Liberty Counsel founder is not alone in his concern. Joe Concha, a columnist, told Fox News, quote, that for Ocasio-Cortez, it's not about being factually correct, it's about what she sees as being right and wrong from a moral perspective. He went on to say that this sort of thing in terms of government regulating speech should stay in China or stay in North Korea, end of quote. New York Post columnist David Harsnell penned, quote, "It's just creepy, not to mention wholly un-American, for an elected official to advocate the state to oversee our political speech. It's also crassly hypocritical. If anyone could use a truth commission, it's Congress," end of quote. And as far as Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce is concerned, the media, quote, an arm of the Democratic Party, end of quote. She calls it already falling into line with the Squad and her fellow leftists. What they're talking about are dissenters, talking about arguments like this, a conversation that critiques and dissents within the framework of what they're doing. But it also exposes the idea of the power that they think they have. And this is now what their job is. Now, Prager University is speaking out as big tech and the left continue their assault on the First Amendment. One News Now is reporting that one group is not a stranger to left-wing big tech and its anti-conservative punishment, and that's Prager University, the conservative-leaning website. It was founded by columnist Dennis Prager, and the website competes against left-wing professors to educate young generations about politics, culture, and religion. The biggest draw of PragerU is its 5-minute mini presentations, also aimed at young adults, that features names such as Ben Shapiro and Dave Rubin. And there's topics such as feminism's effect on the culture, socialism's violent history, and the future of Islam. Craig Strazzeri, chief marketing officer for Prager University, told the Washington Watch program that PragerU has fought big tech since 2016, when its videos were restricted and censored over their displeasing content. Now, almost a year ago, PragerU lost its federal lawsuit against Google and YouTube in a 3-0 appeals court decision, responding to PragerU's complaint that YouTube promotes itself as a free speech platform where everyone deserves a voice. One judge said that is not false advertising, but merely the company's opinion about itself. Now, according to Strazzeri, conservatives did not take the free speech issue seriously as PragerU waged war against the powerful big tech titans. He said, quote, "And here we are in 2021, and we've reached this kind of peak of now people are starting to realize where this is all going. And now it's going from troubling to downright scary, and people's speech is no longer free as it's always been in America, end of quote. Dan Gaynor of MRC Tech Watch told One News Now that Saturday night massacre of Parler reminds him of the Cultural Revolution in China. He said, quote, they ran around, they destroyed statues, sound familiar, changed names of things, erased history, because they don't like history, end of quote. Before it's over, he adds that pesky people will get away, or who get away, will be able to erase, just like they did in the Cultural Revolution in China. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what I'm talking about today. The erasing of truth, the erasing of history. And at some point, the truth will no longer exist because it'll be buried under so many lies. As free speech continues to come under assault, we see Christian organizations also have a target on them. Charlie Butts wrote for One News Now in December 2020 that NBC News released an article listing organizations labeled hate groups by the Southern Poverty Law Center and included various faith-based organizations. Among them, labeled as hate groups, the American Family Association and the Ruth Institute. Now, One News Now at the time spoke with Dr. Jennifer Roback Morris, who heads the Ruth Institute. And she said, quote, NBC News has produced now two pieces that I'm aware of where they're attacking so-called hate groups and so-called anti-LGBT groups for having received paycheck protection money. And in both of those articles, the Ruth Institute is mentioned. And in both of those articles, the American Family Association is mentioned. End of quote. Morse is convinced the network and the SPLC are angling so as a new administration takes over in Washington, it will demand that religious organizations pay back the money. She went on to say, quote, I think that what the SPLC plus NBC News is doing is they're trying to say these people, these Christian groups, these haters are unworthy of this type of public support, and therefore they should have to repay their loans. Even though Planned Parenthood and strip clubs and lots of other businesses are able to receive taxpayer money under the Paycheck Protection Program, end of quote. Now, under the federal guidelines, PPP loans are forgiven provided the money is used for payroll and business expenses such as rent. Now, to fight back, the Ruth Institute is calling on people to challenge media abuse by signing petitions, in conjunction with sites like LifeSite News, politely calling on NBC to apologize on the air, to retract those stories, and to stop using the SPLC as a source. Ladies and gentlemen, the battle's real. The left wants anyone or anything that has an opinion that differs from them to be canceled. Every Christian, every conservative, every single church leader should wake up. This is not going away, but it will get worse. Now, what can we do to help? Or I should say, what can you do to help? Well, first, pray. Because there's nothing more moving than prayer. Pray like your freedom and your life depend upon it, because they do. Second, support the organizations that fight against this garbage. Support the groups that are standing up for your freedoms. Send them a donation. They have lawyers that challenge all of these ridiculous ideas that are pushed on us. Get on their mailing list. Get on their email list. Get notifications on your phone. Then, support programs like this one, the What's Important Now program. Help us get the word out. Help us get on more platforms. Help us get on more radio stations. And that is what you can do. Do not take up arms and try to overthrow the government. As Christians, we know a better way. And let's do it that way, the better way. Now, together we can do anything. And I think one of the main reasons we have seen these things happen in our country is because we have been idle. We have been silent. But ladies and gentlemen, that time has passed. Many would argue that Donald Trump started a movement. Well, turn those passions away from anger. Put those passions towards supporting those who fight for your freedoms. These are unprecedented times. We can get through them stronger. But we must do it together. Stand with one another, and with the help and the grace of God, we can stand up for our freedoms, and we can preserve that which made this nation great. Now, we're almost out of time for today. But before we go, I want to give you a couple other news items that are actually breaking while I'm recording this program. Out of North Dakota, a bill has been drafted in the North Dakota legislature that would allow citizens to actually sue Facebook or Twitter if they've been banned or their account has been blocked. Now, we don't know a lot about this. I'm assuming it still has to go through the legislative process in North Dakota, but this could be something that really establishes a precedent that sweeps across the nation. And we'll continue to follow this story as it develops. But I want to say this. This is a perfect example of how to appropriately fight back against the assault on our First Amendment rights. Kudos to whoever proposed that bill. Also, during this program, it's breaking that Iran has launched missiles near a U.S. carrier. Now, I guess near is defined as about 20 miles out. But this obviously does not ease an already tense situation. There's been no official response by the president or U.S. officials at the time of this recording. But again, it's a tense situation. We have President Trump leaving office, President Biden coming in. We're seeing some other signs of countries sort of flexing their muscles with a new president coming in, including North Korea. So, again, unprecedented times, a lot of challenges. We need to pray. And I guess that's about all I have for today. It's definitely all the time that I have. So I guess the last thing that I would say to you is that I encourage you to pray for the safety of our National Guard and those involved in trying to secure a smooth transition of power this week. The keys to our country will be passed on to the Biden administration, and I believe we should pray that everything goes smoothly and peacefully. I also want to say that we should thank President Trump and continue praying for him. Thank him for his service to our country. And at the same time, we should be praying for President-elect Joe Biden as he enters office. The truth is, I will fight against his policies on this program, Lord willing, over the next 4 years. And I will argue that some of the policies he's enacting are not what's good for this country. That's inevitable. It's going to happen. But I will also do my best to be respectful to the office he serves in and to continue praying for him as he serves. May God bless them and our country. And may they seek the counsel of Almighty God. Well, I want to thank you for being a part of our program. We have started a daily news update on our podcast platforms, especially on the Anchor.fm podcast platform. So I encourage you to check it out there. Every day, sometime in the afternoon, I'll put out 5, 6, 7-minute clip of some various news items. I encourage you to check that out. A new podcast or program will drop every Saturday on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Go and subscribe. You can email us at what'simportantnowradio@gmail.com, what'simportantnowradio@gmail.com, and our mailing address is 8901 Good Hope Pike, Lost Creek, West Virginia, 26385. I want to close as I always close, but I want you to listen. Fight the good fight of faith. We can no longer be silent. There is a cause. It does matter, and it is important now. And a part I guess I left out was contend for the faith, which obviously comes from the book of Jude. We must stand up now. We're watching our freedoms erode. I'm Tom Sears. Let's make the Bill of Rights right again. Continue the fight for our country. Stand up. Pray. Seek the face of God in His grace and mercy. Have a wonderful day and take care.